Okay, welcome everyone. So this session, we broadly titled AI in industry, and that's something we just heard about as well. It's about the applications and what are the challenges industry faces from adoption of AI, etc. And one of the things we talk about is going beyond this. So, some interesting facts. In the recent Deloitte study done globally, which shows that AI adoption in India is amongst the highest in the world and highest in Asia Pacific. One data. CPRG, Ramadan is here. They did a survey with college students in January earlier this year. 90% of them are using AI tools for their academic work. ChatGPT now claims that most of their users come from Asia. But when we talk to the startups, and I think they'll all agree, they say, but where are the projects? We're not able to break beyond PoC, right? So that's the context. There is a little dichotomy from euphoria versus actual application. And I think one of the things which was highlighted earlier as well was that there are challenges for industry to adopt on this. So first of all, let me start by posing this question to each of you, which is, what are the applications you are seeing of AI within your industry, within your companies? And then we'll come on to the rest. So, Prasad, maybe I talk to you first. Banking is one industry which has transformed completely, right? In 15 years, it's gone from 100% physical to almost 100% digital. I'm sure all banks are actively looking at AI. What are the applications and areas that you are looking at?
Sure. Firstly, morning everyone, and thanks for having me over. So I'm a part of HDFC Bank. I had their technology center here in Bangalore. I think AI is, and when I talk about AI, I'm talking about Gen AI, because traditionally ML has been used, for marketing and credit and risk use cases for a long period of time. But at HDFC Bank, we are investing significantly in a series of programs which we believe will help the bank in a big way. And so to give you some example, and these are real use cases, we are way beyond PoC. I think last year was PoC, but the way at which Gen AI has matured, there are proper programs in place. At a very fundamental level, we believe that this technology will make banking simple. So that is sort of the primary goal. And what I mean by that is, in spite of digital, in spite of, net, mobile, and so on, what is the best way you would like to interact with a bank? If you ask yourself the question, I'm sure it would be, I would like to walk across to a branch and, talk to someone. So that still remains the preferred mode, but you can't scale that up, right? So, and also if we look at, let's say, our maids or, our drivers, you go to rural India, it is impossible or difficult for them to interact with the digital channels. So a huge push is, how do we make our services, available using the Gen AI technology, right? So be it on our public website, be it on, being able to do transactions on net banking, mobile banking, in a simple manner through language, multilingual, right? You should be able to speak, hey, I want to transfer, mujhe itna paisa transfer karna hai, and the technology should take over. So that's one big area. And then there are programs on operational efficiency, improving risk and all of that as well. Yeah.
So you're looking at mainly customer interactions and customer facing application, which is very good. Mahesh, let me come to you. So you have created Sahamati, which is the account aggregator framework, which allows the exchange of data and secure manner between various financial organizations.
Yeah.
What kind of applications are you seeing?
So, firstly, one interesting, thing which is we all are looking into is the actually in the area of fraud. Okay, in fraud especially, I think Gen AI or AI, any of those, whichever term you want to use, it is being used. But I'm not sure how many have actually gone to production. So, example, we are having a division called Sahamati Labs, and we are working with a couple of banks. And I think even before you work on the solutioning, whether it is AI or non-AI, I think it is important to focus on the problem. Because I think everybody is into this keyword, buzzword that, I am into Gen AI, this and that. So I think when you lose the focus on what is the problem you're trying to solve, I think, you'll not, the output will not be good. So we have understood over the last few years that, fraud is an issue. And, you do have your places like Chamtara and No, which are, possibly they all have your PhDs in scams, and we all are behind actually them. So if I could use a few of them as your volunteers, I think I could have a very strong anti. Okay, so that is on the back end side, and on the front end side, where we see the industry is yet to implement, frankly, is in the languages. So actually, your first session for me was very interesting to hear the importance of languages. I've worked like almost 20 years in your digital languages, and I feel that it has to be embraced a lot more in the financial sector. I will speak specifically in your DPI, digital public infrastructure, and in the account aggregator. We have a very, very simple screen about taking a consent. So in India, especially your concept of taking a consent itself is very new, because we are agreeing to give any data we want for your coupon of Swiggy. We are happy to give away all our data, right? So when you have a consent, which is you're designed by Mighty, but you have 4 to 5 fields. But an ordinary person, I don't think, is able to understand what exactly that consent is, right? So there, I think it becomes very important for us to be able to have your visual version of the consent, where it explains to me that for what you're actually going to give the consent. And also we need, because this audio and video is very important. See, we need to understand, many of us, including me, we can speak many Indian languages, but we can't read the languages. So, but it has to be in audio and video. And exactly due to that, I'm saying that we need to understand what the problem are, and it has to be implemented, and it has to go to production. Otherwise, simply doing PoC, it isn't enough. Your Gartner report has actually said over 30% of the PoC is actually shelved because of the lack of data and not understanding the problem.
Right. So I see one common emerging theme, which is consumer interface. And of course, fraud is a important part. Gaurav, let me come to you as the sole representative of the manufacturing sector here, and you have all your life experience in the automobile industry, 4-wheeler, 2-wheeler, others. What applications are you seeing for AI? Both the back end and you are adding complexity of manufacturing plant, and there are also possibilities there. And your product itself is adopting AI, right? Which is a lot of understanding. So where are you seeing traction?
Thank you, Alok. I think, we structure this, the response in 3 categories or 3 buckets. And when we were talking earlier, the aim is to be that how to move the PoC to a PO. That is where the magic will start to happen. And that's when we start looking at industrialization. So in our sector, if you look at the first set, if you look at manufacturing, like you mentioned, there are already work areas happening in our organization itself in terms of manufacturing efficiencies. You're talking of equipment efficiencies, you're talking of predictability of maintenance and therefore efficiency, safety, using visual and other algorithms as well. More importantly, now we're looking at working with the suppliers also in terms of entire supply chain efficiency coming into picture. So that's an area that is huge or hugely available for new opportunities in India personally. Second is in terms of consumer facing activities. Already at our end, we are working in the area of conversational AI. We are working already in the area of voice AI as well. So whenever we have our call centers talking to our consumers, the entire sentiment analysis, etc., that is being worked on very actively. The third area now is actually leveraging in the area of marketing and tools also. In fact, I must happily to share with you, Alok, that our team is now leveraged and put across an entire AI-generated advertising campaign also. So in terms of making sure that and using Gen AI content is very specific to consumers, that's an area that can always evolve even to higher levels. And the third area is actually for employee engagement. We very often underrate that importance of the in-house customer that we all have. So that's an area that we try to work on at TVS as well. So the three buckets would be consumer facing, manufacturing, supply chain, as well as then you're looking at your own internal employee. These are the three areas where you have huge area opportunity for POC to become PO.
Interesting. Let's come to the IT business. Sateesh, people are predicting that all coding will be done by AI and humans will be useless. What is the reality? You are not only using these skills, but you are also providing AI solutions to enterprise, right? So where are you seeing the reality and the actual traction?
It's a great question. I think it's one of those questions. It's $1 million question, maybe $1 billion question. So look, I'm part of EdgeVerve, which is a subsidiary of Infosys, and we're focused on building AI platforms that can be leveraged by large enterprises around the world. So that's the context of my experience and my answer. See, multiple use cases. I'll come to your second question a little later because something that we're internally experiencing that. But there are numerous use cases around the world where AI obviously has applicability. But this POC to production is not an India problem. Okay, if it is framed as an India problem, it's a worldwide problem. Okay, everybody in the world has this this big challenge of here we see a great technology which has tremendous potential, but how do I really realize the benefit of this, right? But there's a consumer side facing things, and then the enterprise side of AI. The enterprise side of AI has a very different set of dynamics, right? And that has to be circumvented. Having said that, some of the enterprises have been charting their course, right? In some of the banks, we have been using this in their KYC process, in the corporate KYC, not necessarily the consumer, the corporate KYC, which is far more complex, right? If you look at many of the processes that they do, it's all about, can you really leverage this technology to drive straight through processing, right? And it is not about just AI as a singular technology. It is a convergence of technologies that you have to bring together along with AI to deliver this kind of value. So I don't think the enterprises should look at AI as a singular, a silver bullet, right? It's all about bringing multitude of technologies along with AI to drive value. We're seeing similar things in insurance. One of the things that we did internally, maybe it's a cue for some of the startups here, is to look at some personas in these industries and say, how can AI help assist these personas to do their job better, right? I'll give you an example. In the insurance industry, we picked underwriters as a persona, right? We say, okay, it's one of the most complex personas that exists in the insurance industry. How can AI simplify their job, their decision-making, either the cycle of decision-making or the nature of decision-making, right? And so one is looking from a process perspective and persona perspective, you'll start seeing a lot of use cases. Coming to our own internal organization, we are embracing, I think, as he rightly put, from a product management and a product marketing perspective, I think we will see dramatic changes. In fact, our product management organization, which decides what's the future of the platform, what should be built, when it should be built, why it should be built, how it should be built, is completely augmented, significantly augmented by AI. And we are using Gen AI to do that. So one is in terms of creating the strategy, validating the strategy, and creating a roadmap. AI can play a role, and we are leveraging this. Second is marketing. I think that's one area where I believe it's going to get disrupted significantly, right? And this is almost happening right now as we speak, all the way from concept to design to delivery. All those things can be transformed in the marketing value chain. I think that's the second area. The third one is in the coding. Now coming to your question. Obviously, Gen AI and all the Copilot ecosystem that's been built around this is of tremendous value. And I can tell you within our own organization in EdgeVerve, our engineering organization is probably the most benefited function and an individual in this context, right? we are seeing close to 40 to 50% improvement in productivity. One is the productivity improvement. The second is also the quality of code that you can build, right? There is the other thing is about the quality. So in terms of the time to value, the quality, and also the productivity, all these things, I think we're seeing benefit of this technology in the coding area.
One very important thing from what you're saying, and just correlate to some of the conversation recently had, which is the personas. So to adopt AI, you need to identify the personas that the AI needs to provide. It's not about the technology anymore. And just comparing it to we spoke to, I personally spoke to the CEOs to come and attend. And many of them were fearful. They said, can I send my CTO, CIO, CTO, etc. for this? The CEOs, and actually what we need is CEOs, because the CEOs will define the personas and not the CTOs. The CTOs will look at the technology and say, okay, what can we do? So from that perspective, Sunil, you are you have set up the largest NVIDIA GPU cluster in India, and you have your Shakti cloud. So you have an overview of the demand which is coming, right? So you have actually the pulse on what people are actually doing. So give us some insights into what people are doing.
Alok, thank you for having me here. We are actually seeing, first is there's a whole lot of the trainings of models taking place, which is a good thing. There was a whole lot of debate across India the last couple of months whether India should make its own foundational LLM or not. Mr. Nilekani was on record to say that India should rather focus on being the use case capital of the world. And then there was a contrary view by government that because of geopolitical factors of sovereignty and having a complete self-control on our own models, because LLMs ultimately will start reflecting your own culture and your own language context. So that thing, because of India AI mission pushing for multiple large language models to be made in India, not just one or two. And yesterday I was actually sitting with officials there, and I was amazed to hear that out of 503 proposals for GPU access which they have received, 47 of them actually are for large language models. And these are not small language models, large language models. Each model asking for more than 2,000 GPUs. Now, this is humongous. Just 18 months back, we were talking about does India need 1,000 GPU, and today we are actually talking about 1 lakh GPUs, right? And of course, then the rest of the models, who are talking about SLMs, industry-specific SLMs, and then inferencing obviously will be much larger demand when you start having population scale, adoptions of AI. So one thing I can clearly see is that the models are being built thanks to government subsidizing the LLMs 100%. So that thing, Sarvam has been has already been sanctioned GPUs. In fact, as we speak, it's getting trained on our GPUs now. And a couple of other LLMs have been, given GPUs, and this will continue further. So that is the training part. What I can see is that, from a industry point of view, the people who possibly already have developed some use cases and actually have, commercially gaining from that. That way I can see from across the industry customers. So there is a GCC based out of Pune. I mean, they're Switzerland based, but they have adopted AI on scale for drug discovery and their drug asset management. They're recommending their customers which drug to adopt, which drug to, de-license and things like that. There are, I'm not taking names, but there are very successful companies who in medical diagnostics, they are actually have been certified by US authorities that second recommendation of doctor is not required because the AI has become so good, right? There are customers who are, taking raw videos and then creating personalized videos, for example. And these are all, I'm talking about the use cases where I know the customers are commercially successful, right? Of course, like we have got Infosys here who have got AI into their entire Finacle built into that, and it's acting like a co-pilot into the usage of a Finacle product. We have examples of IIT Bombay, right, and IIT Chennai, who are creating lots of models, who, will be open sourced and then will be made available on platforms like Bhashini. The best example I would say of, which I can say is maybe UPI in the making in AI space is Bhashini. Where I've seen their scale to increase from about 2 million inferencing per day to about 16 million as we speak per day. right? Through various APIs which are coming from various government ministries, users, and maybe Aadhaar APIs and all, which is like 8-time usage of inferencing just in the last 4 months, right? So the fundamental thing which I can see based on all the interaction with the customers is that while the model making effort is mostly either a government funded effort, the money is available, or maybe some private equity is willing to spend their dollars for some future gain, right? So that effort will happen. Some entrepreneur is not putting in money, right? Which actually is a sad part. It is more of a VCP money or a government grant which are actually leading to that. Even in case of a large-scale inferencing, the discussion of a PoC converting to a full production use case, that dilemma of that you are spending, even for inferencing of a reasonable scale, you still need GPUs, and they are going to cost a huge amount of money. Whether this benefit which AI is supposed to give to me, whether that is worth the cost which I'm going to incur on that. So that is the dilemma which typically is a dialogue between a CIO proposing that to a CEO and CFO, and then they just stop short of taking that decision. That is one part. Second, I hear Mr. Manoj Jain of BES talking, the CMD, and that is the conversations I've seen, especially from banking industry or the regulated industries and defense forces and all, that can you give us an air gap solution, right? We cannot be supposed to be on internet, and can you, give us a solution which is completely isolated, and we are not going to touch internet, or even if we touch internet, it has to be in a very regulated way and things like that. So that is the second part which people are very wary of. They don't want to use hyperscalers. They don't want to use internet-based products. They want to use intranet-based products, even if it's hosted. They understand that possibly BEL can afford to spend 500 crores, on GPUs, but majority of the organization, given the risky nature, it is huge opportunity, but it's risky, so people don't want to spend that type of capex also. So how do we bring, that you are able to give a sovereign solution, you are able to give an air gap solution, you are able to give an intranet solution with customers bringing their own lease lines and terminating there. You also are able to give it on a cloud model that people don't spend capex and rather just pay by the hour of whatever GPU capacity they're using. And of course, it remains a completely sovereign product. That is what I think is a combination customers are looking forward to. Good part is these things are available now, right? Unlike which, like so many times it's not available. You always have a dilemma, either buy, which is very capex hungry, or go to hyperscaler, which also become very costly. And of course, it's not sovereign. People are very scared, especially from an AI point of view. So what we are able to do, and I think that is how I can see maybe some triggers are happening, that we are able to give this usage-based thing. This is the most advanced, sort of a NVIDIA infrastructure which we have created. It's like a globally comparable. It's actually one of the only 5 infrastructure in the world which has been certified by NVIDIA like this. And we are able to, with the subsidy of Government of India, if you add on that, even that 40% subsidy, a GPU like a H100 is now available at sub-$1 per hour range. So I would say this model of being able to do your AI in a very intranet way, in a sovereign way, with your data being completely secure, and still not needing to invest capex and totally take it on a usage basis. I think these are the things which it's a matter of time that people will start finding more and more use cases. This hygiene issue of having to spend so much of money and my data being not secure will go away, and the scale will start coming in.
Also echoing some of the conversation which happened in the first session, what Professor Krishna and Professor Ganesh talked about, which is collaboration, very few industry investment in R&D. It's a different conversation.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now that brings me to the second question overall, which is what are the challenges or shortcomings or issues we are facing with the current solutions and models which are available from an industry perspective? Sometimes the developers don't have that appreciation. So we good to hear from you guys. So Gaurav, let's start with you. What is your experience and what are the challenges?
I think, like Sunil, you said very clearly, one of the challenges we face was, and is rather, that how do we make it work within our own system? We don't want to, we still feel there's a risk of connecting outside, and hence that limitation is there. So if that can be addressed, I'll be more than happy to look at solutions. The second is in terms of, frankly, the change. So when we give an approval for some project, By the time it gets into execution, there's already a version 5 or version 6 happening. So what you approved for becomes redundant actually. And hence that it is good to say actually the pace is good, but then, the whole vision of saying approval is for X, but it'll take into X plus delta, and that it becomes a challenge to keep going back to the board, to keep asking for variations and delta changes. And the third one is actually the understanding of the persona and the real problems. Very often we have seen that a lot of academic activity comes up for approval. And when you ask them that, where will the AI help us into activity, it is mostly converting real life physical into digital. And what's the next step? And that's the question mark which comes in. But I can say that at our end, at least in TVS, we've got a large workforce working on digital and AI. It goes into high 3-digit numbers of manpower. So there's a lot of investment being done. Data lake investments have all been done 4 or 5 years ago. So that progress has been done. But the next step is where we are working on, but I think we can increase the pace definitely.
Mahesh.
So I think your challenges are multifold. Yeah, too many solutions are out there. Okay, number one. And if you go on Twitter, too much noise is there. Okay, there are so many things we don't know to use this solution, that solution. Yeah, which model to use? It is it is very, very confusing. So, what we do is we just pick a particular model and we are sticking to it, because we know that once we know how to solve the problem with one model, it is quite easy to go across the model. And we do have a skill gap for sure. Okay, just because somebody has gone, for a course for 1 week, 1 month, and if they're having the resume where they know all the buzzwords, it won't work. So I would advise them that it would be good for them to volunteer, with few companies, Section 8 companies, where you get the practical knowledge. Okay, that's what is required. For example, Sahamati, the first 2 years, we built the entire company with about 35 volunteers. Okay, and today you see it is already 6 years and we are able to deliver. So I would say that we have a skill gap, and we would like to see in the your curriculum, AI is introduced not only in theory, but it should be practical. So if it has to be practical, it has to be actually through if they're able to work in the industries. And that's where I think the industry has to play a big role in opening the doors. Okay, to have actually students where they're able to train. So if we start working on it, now within a year or two, you will see a difference. But even 1 year, in my opinion, is actually slow. So we need to act very, very fast on that.
Talent is crucial. Okay. Since you are providing these solutions as well, what is the gap between the hype and the reality also a challenge for adoption? Because what is being promised and what is actually being delivered is not necessarily the same.
Absolutely. I think you hit it on the nail. When we engage with clients, that's the first chasm we have to cross. I think there is a huge amount of expectation of what's the art of possible. But when rubber meets the road, you will see that you start peeling the onion. Simple things like, to go after anything to do with AI, you need to have data which is ready, good quality data. And the current enterprises which have siloed systems and processes, to have universal data to drive universal AI in the context of an enterprise is a very huge leap. And that is the first challenge that they will realize. While they all feel they're way ahead in their data governance, once we hit the road, we'll realize they're so behind, especially in terms of context of how much maturity is needed to serve the needs of AI. That is one. Second is the kind of guardrails that organizations need to have in place to manage a disruptive and a powerful technology such as AI is very different than any other technologies that we've historically seen. Just to give you some examples, when we engage with legal to close a contract, I'm just taking a very simple example. I don't believe legal in organizations are mature to have a conversation on AI related liabilities and controls and risks. Right? So how do you close a contract? Contract that would have been probably closed in a week probably can take months together just because, they don't know how to close these contracts. And just give you one simple example of why hype and reality is so different, right? One thing is for sure, we at least strongly believe that the challenge is not going to be about models. We will have numerous models, whether it is, abstracted level models or some specific small language models, etc. All these things. I think the real challenge in our view, the enterprises will face is about orchestrating all this. Going back to what he was mentioning earlier, this is the predicament anybody faces when there's a fast-moving technology, right? What you start with is what you will deploy. You should know that. You should know the day you start designing. You should know the day you deploy is going to be different. So how do you navigate this? So orchestrating all these things is going to be complex. So there are multitude challenges, right? The reality is, of course, AI is extremely powerful. There's no doubt about it. I think we've all experienced it personally. We can see that playing out. But the journey an organization has to take to really get to this is quite a bit.
So from your bank's perspective, what are the challenges you see?
Yeah.
With the current solution?
So, as we implement this technology, there are, a bunch of engineering and technical problems. So that's for sure. I would categorize them maybe in two buckets. One is essentially how do you scale the technology, and what I mean is not the AI technology. So I'll give you an example. I spoke about taking AI for customer service. Now, as a bank, just on the retail side, we will have about anywhere between 500 to 800 features or functionalities. So typically when you look at function calling examples and things like that, that the Googles of the world put, there'll be some 3 or 4 of them. But will it actually scale when you have so many options? And this is only one part of the bank, right? So those are problems that we are working on. So that's sort of one bucket of problems. The second is how do you scale and make it commercially viable? I think Sunil spoke about it. So if we have to take voice technology for close to 6 crore customers, does it really is it at a price point where it is making sense, right? So those are sort of couple of issues, and the other piece which needs senior management support is this is not a linear path. The technology is so new that it will be zigzag. I mean, we are pretty sure we will reach the outcome, but it's not like, a typical digital project, which is predictable and, you will make a very predictable progress. So the path is going to be zigzag, and that is something which, the executive team should buy into, right? So that's sort of the other piece. Yeah.
So that's quite good that you were able to do that. What Sateesh was talking about. So you're able to manage the evolution of the entire project cycle as well. So Sunil, one of my understandings or observations is that while you are setting up the infrastructure, what the users need is always different from what you said.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How do you, what is your observation now?
Yeah. See, I think, let me just tell you, whatever the customers are asking for, I can boil that down into possibly 4 buckets. Cost, right? Anything and everything in India will go at a population scale. We have seen UP and we have seen examples of smartphones, 3G, 4G, 5G. We all know that. We will adopt technology at scale, but it has to deliver great value to me at the lowest possible cost, right? That is how we as India operates. So how do I take care of cost, make it completely usage based? How do I take care of scalability? As like he said, that you may start with a PoC. You may start too small because you have to experiment. You don't want to put too much of money. But once my customers adopt it, I should be able to scale at crazy space. That is second. Third is, of course, especially in AI context, sovereignty, right? It is like my data should not go out, air gap, as per different industries demand, there may be different variation of this sovereignties, security, data safety angle, but that is the third angle. And fourth is co-creation, most important. I tell you, my customers are not the end customers of AI, right? End customers actually are approaching the intermediaries, the people who are building models, the people who are fine-tuning models, who are building apps on the top of that. These intermediaries in turn are coming to me for taking my underlying services, right? So unless and until, and I think that that's the theme of the whole event, that co-creation, that unless the underlying infrastructure builders, the PaaS builders, the model builders, the data set providers, the app providers, they all work together, the end result will not be there. So in so many cases, I end up telling my customer, okay, this is what I will provide. I'll bring in my partner, who is also my customer. He will provide the solution, and then we'll work together, So, so coming on this, how do they want? What we have done is, one is that we have brought down the cost in India, at a much lesser level compared to what is prevailing worldwide, right? Just to give you an example, any let's say standard GPU, which may be available at, let's say, $10, $12 per hour in a developed market like US. In India, it has started coming as sub $2, right? Even when you are giving the most advanced technology, right? That is the price difference which has come in. And again, I'm saying on the top of that, if you start adding government subsidies, right, it starts becoming at a much lower level. Second is, you are making services granular. Not everybody need a full GPU, right? There will be people who are training models who need thousands of GPUs at a single cluster. But there is other end of the spectrum, especially startups, who just say, just give me one GPU, or rather a slice of a GPU, right? If you go further advanced, they are saying, why should I need even GPU? Just give me Llama, just give me API, and just charge me by the number of tokens I'm inputting or outputting, right? So unless we start creating these individual services, right, that it actually becomes at a consumption level, at a total level, instead of even at a GPU level, we will not be able to grow the industry. If we want to grow every single part of the ecosystem, the people like BEL and the people like Army, for example, will have different needs altogether, where sovereignty angle will take over anything else. But the people who are startups, who are experimenting, who actually have got a seed money, and they want to rather use that money on their salaries and skill sets and not on GPUs per se, I'll have to give them those minor increments of compute so that they can keep on sustaining that. So these angles of sovereignty, 100%, air gap solutions. Can you give me air gap solutions which hyperscalers cannot give? Yes, that is a solution I'll have to give. Cost effective. As I said, third is scalability. You should be able to scale to much larger limits. Suddenly, today's startup become tomorrow's unicorn. You never get to know that. And of course, finally, co-creation. That is what is required. Yeah.
So, coming to the last few minutes of our session, I thought I'll ask you same question Shashi want to ask again. How can startups, especially AI developers, startups, work with you? And more importantly, we all spoke about access to data. How can you collaborate in providing them data? And what are the other things they can do to work closely with you, because it's all about collaboration. It's something we all agree on. So, Sunil, let's start with you.
Yeah, so we actually are already running two programs. We call them Shambho program and Rudra programs. And these programs are like a standard cloud operators program where we are giving credits to startups. So today we have around, I think, 25 good startups who we have given them access to GPUs practically for next 2 years. So that they are able to take them from concept to the maturity commercial stage. And when they go to commercially live and self-sustaining, then obviously they can possibly go to my advanced service and start possibly becoming a paid customer. But this is something which we feel is our contribution for possibly some potential business benefit in future of growing this whole ecosystem. So these programs are available. They're available on my public website also. Startups can just subscribe. Any deep tech partner of NASSCOM can come through a Shambho program, or anybody who is a NVIDIA Inception partner, he can come through my Rudra program. Yeah.
So we already work with a lot of startups. I mean, there is so much to do. It is impossible, for one organization to do it all. In a more structured way, we do run a startup accelerator program through Pravega Ventures, and people can follow, and they open up for cohorts to come in, and we talk to startups and evaluate and so on. So that's the second way. Third way is, please reach out to me. I mean, if you're working on something interesting, reach out to me, and happy to understand more. See, on the data side, since we are a regulated entity, it's very difficult for us to share data. So that piece we'll have to figure out depending on the use case, how much data is required and so on. Yeah.
See, Infosys has, as an organization, set up Infosys Innovation Network, and it's been there for many years. I think that would be a good channel to engage. The other is, I think, if any of you are interested, you can reach out to me. We are obviously working with many real world problems with our customers. And I can tell you there are so many unsolved problems in this space as we work through the details. So I think there are enough problems for startups to really take up and do meaningful work. So I'd encourage you guys to reach out to me personally. Otherwise, the Infosys Innovation Network would be a formal way in which we can engage with them.
So we are already working with a few startups, who are specializing in the fraud part. And what we are more interested is to work with actually the banks, by which we are able to solve the problem. And of course, the main issue we have is how do we get access to data? We do not want access to the real data. We want synthetic data and some inputs. So if the way we can help actually is if anybody wants to volunteer, do internship, etc. Because we are a very small company, like 17, 18 of us, Section 8 companies. So we are not like all of them here who have the money. But the one we can help is to train and actually work with anybody who's like extremely hungry and who wants to show some quick results is the way we can contribute.
So I think, anyone can write to us on our website or reach out to me directly as well. Like we've seen, for these kind of initiatives, top-down really helps. Otherwise, it gets lost in the entire system. And I must add to, Mahesh's point, we are hungry. We are very hungry. So please help us out, definitely. One thing I must say, Alok, is before we wrap up, is that I'm new to Bangalore. And if all the think tanks are here and more outside, what can be the solution for Bangalore traffic? So if Gen AI, Agentic AI, whatever AI can help, I would love to see a solution coming up and help us to see it in real life at least. That can be a real proof coming up.
Let's hope for Jen. Thank you very much. I think this was really helpful. I learned a lot of things. So clear signals which are coming out is industry is open to collaboration. We have to believe that we are open to collaboration. The message to all startups, I think we have to build this collectively. Issue of data and sovereignty is a sensitive one, so let's understand that sensitivity and work accordingly, rather than saying, "Oh, I'm not getting access to data, and let's not work for it." Getting the right kind of talent and therefore preparing for the talent, and again, therefore, everybody has to come together, and it's not just about the technical training, but the application training. Which is useful. And consumer interface is clearly a strong, whether it's consumer interface to marketing or customer services and so on. And therefore, it's a good area for all the startups to look at and provide their solution. So with that, thank you everyone.